You should be the first person to offer to carry equipment. Time is your greatest asset. Do not waste it, and take note of how much time you have. You need to make sure that you are fueling your body. You're still going to have a social life because your sport is your social life. Welcome to Dallas Talks Too Much, the show made by student athletes for student athletes. Here you can find advice and tips from real student athletes to help you make the most of your athletic journey. I'm your host, Dallas Spiker Ramirez. Go ahead and subscribe to Dallas Talks Too Much on YouTube, follow us on Instagram, and share this episode with a friend. Tell me what you think in the comments. If you have questions about being a collegiate student athlete, I have a link in the Instagram bio and video description where you can submit all your questions. Let's get started. Happy back to school, everyone. I don't know about y'all, but my summer went way too fast. And I thought high school went by fast. College is a blink. I am now a senior and I feel like I just got here. But I've learned a lot from my time here and grown as a person. And I'm going to share with you all of the things that I wish I knew when I was a freshman entering college for the first time. Now I am going to cover some things that are specific to student athletes, but all my advice can be translated to whatever goal you're trying to accomplish. First things first, packing. When I was going through the recruiting process years ago, I got some great advice about packing clothes. This player basically told me not to overpack your regular clothes. Now, what do I mean by regular clothes? I'm talking about stylish, comfortable clothing that is not specific to your sports, like jeans, graphic t-shirts, special sneakers that you only wear for special occasions. Sport-specific clothes, in my case, for example, are going to be softball pants, socks, belts, Under Armour, and the dirty sweatpants that I wore into the cafeteria after lifting conditioning. And here is why she said not to overpack. One, you're probably going to get clothes from the team or program that are going to say the school and what team you're for. And two, sometimes it's easier to wear your practice clothes to class, especially if you have an afternoon practice. You can just go right to practice as soon as your class ends if you don't have time to have a costume change. My freshman year, I would go directly from weights or conditioning, immediately to practice, and then right to my 9:30 Spanish class. And I would often be covered in dirt, walking in looking like Pigpen from Charlie Brown with a cloud of dust behind me. And luckily my professor was really cool with it, and I told her ahead of time that I had morning practices and I might be a few minutes late because I'm coming straight from practice. Which brings me to my next point. As a student athlete, your relationship with your professor is so incredibly important. Now, it's possible that you might not be particularly passionate about school. I'm not here to tell you whether or not that's a bad thing, but I am going to tell you that you will not be eligible to play your sport if you do not have your crap together. You are a student athlete. Student comes first. The athlete part is a privilege. So here's what I am going to suggest to you. 1, introduce yourself to your professors. Now, I'm very lucky to be at a school where our student-faculty ratio is 16-1. I think the biggest class size I've ever had was maybe 30 people in it. And it is so crucial that your professors know who you are, because you don't want to send them an email and they're like, oh, I've never heard of this kid ever. Especially if the professors are within your department, because you want to be able to say, hey, I would really love a letter of recommendation for this internship I want. Making relationships with the department professors is really going to help you out, because you're going to probably have to see them time and time again. So here is what your introduction is going to look like. After the first class, go up to the professor, standing tall with a charming smile on your face, make eye contact, shake their hand and say, hi, Professor whatever. It's nice to meet you. I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Dallas Spiker Ramirez. I'm a sports management major. I'm on the softball team, and I look forward to learning more in this course. Now, you don't have to say all that, but obviously I'm overkill, so that's what I did, and it worked. You know why? Professors will never care more than you do. If you are bumming all the way through a semester, not going to class, not doing assignments, and then you send them an email like, is there any extra credit I can do? Good night. I would be shocked if they responded to that. And I need to emphasize that there is more than just one introduction. It's about consistency. Sit in the front. put your phone away, ask questions. Even if you don't care, pretend that you do. If you have a better relationship with your professor, they will probably be more accommodating when you have to email them, I won't be in class, I'm traveling for an away game. This is a true story from my freshman year. I was in some generic rhetoric and speech course, and at the very end of the semester, there was an 100-point assignment that I didn't do. I didn't want to do it. I didn't even start the Word doc. I didn't open it. But my professor looked at all my other grades from that course and said, Dallas didn't do this assignment, but she's gotten an A on all the other assignments. She comes to class all the time. And he said, I probably just forgot to give her a grade. A. I got 100 free points just because my professor trusted me and he knew what I was like as a student. He wasn't just throwing me a bone. Professors don't do that. They trust the students, because if I was sitting in the back not doing a thing on my phone, do you think he would have done that? Absolutely not. You have to consistently represent yourself in the best possible fashion. And for your schedules, let them know ahead of time if you have practice right before their class. And let your coaches know that you have classes after your practice so they can let you go on time. Communicate this with your coaches and professors at the beginning of the semester so you don't surprise them with it later. And in addition, telling your coaches or professors face to face, email them so you have hard proof that you informed them about it. Which brings me to my next point. CYB, cover your butt. This goes for more than just schedules. Anytime you inform anyone about anything, emails, because that is something that can be traced back. Some professors genuinely forget some conversations, and you have to remind them, no, I did tell you about this. Here's the proof that I told you a month ago and that you confirmed that you received the message and you agreed to it. Do this always. I actually need to do this. This is real. I need to do this because I talked with my professor about an internship that he cleared for me to do next semester, but I only have his approval verbally. I don't have it in writing. So today I plan on emailing him and reminding him of that conversation and summarize the conclusion we came to, give him a chance to correct me. If he says, no, I didn't say that, we can have more conversation about it. If he says, sounds good, then I'm locked in, I'm set, and I have that proof. Especially for athletes, if you have to reschedule a test that you missed because of a game, email your professor, because sometimes professors will be like, I never said that, and you have to pull up the receipts. I'm not saying professors are intentionally forgetful, I'm just saying they're human, and humans can be forgetful. Cover your butt. And a quick word about missing classes because of travel or games. Your program or team or school might have a designated person to send out emails for you to your professor that say, please excuse such and such for this class at this time, she has a softball game. Even if there is a person to do it for you, you still do it too. Bringing it back to that relationship with your professor, you are building trust. And a note about studying. Put your phone away. Studies show that our attention span is only about 6 seconds long before we look at our phones. And oftentimes, just putting your phone away isn't enough to get fully locked in. Your phone has to be in a completely separate room. And I completely agree with that statement. I watched that on a YouTube short and I was like, okay, I'm gonna try this. And this is a real story. When I studied for the GREs this summer, in my home of Pennsylvania, I would leave my phone downstairs and go upstairs to study and do the practice tests. And be realistic with yourself. Something I learned about myself is that I am less likely to procrastinate if I'm out of my room. If I have some time to kill and I have stuff to do, I go to the library because I know for a fact that I'm not going to get anything done in my room. I can't work in the same place that I sleep unless I'm speed typing out an essay and it's near midnight because I refuse to start said essay. And speaking of, let's talk about time. Time is your greatest asset. Do not waste it, and take note of how much time you have. When I was about 14 years old, I went to a Michigan softball camp, and one of the assistant coaches, I think he was an assistant, he could have been a trainer, he looked at my hitting group of maybe 7 other girls, and he said, you have 4 burners on the stove of your college life. Sleep, school, softball, social life. 4 burners, but you can only use 3. Now, sleep will affect everything else, so you have to have that. Sleep is non-negotiable. Next is school. Again, you are here for an education, and if you fall below that eligibility line, you can't play your sport, which is what you're here to do. That's softball. And then his whole point was that being a student athlete means you sacrifice your social life. And I still remember this because it scared the crap out of me. I'm 14 years old and I'm just like, I'm not gonna have a social life in college. And now as a senior, I agree with that statement to an extent. You're still going to have a social life because your sport is your social life. Your team is your social life. Those are going to be the people that you see every day, whether you like it or not. They're going to be your big brothers, big sisters, who you can ask for help on assignments or directions to a building on campus. And outside of that, being a student athlete already gives you an in with other athletes. Please keep in mind that I only speak from my experience here at Delaware State. I can't speak for any other programs or schools. But I can say with confidence that it's probably easier to make friends as an athlete because you have your roommates, your classmates, your entire team, and other athletes on other teams. When I first got to campus, the first people I ever hung out with were softball, obviously, women's basketball, because that's who I lived with, women's tennis, women's lacrosse. Just because we all were student athletes, we were just like, oh, tennis? Because we were wearing our shirts, and that just kind of brought us together because we have a shared experience, and we were going to be going through this together. And bringing it back to those 4 burners of college life. Be smart. If you do partake in typical college recreational activities, do not wear anything that says your team name. You have something to lose, and that is your ability to play the sport you love. Check your team handbook, check your student handbook. Delaware State, for example, is a dry campus, so no smoking and no alcohol, even if you are 21 or older. And if you, let's say, hypothetical, if you are 21 and public safety finds alcohol in your room, that still goes against the student handbook because it's not supposed to be on campus. So I'm not gonna tell you what to do or not do. Live your life here in college, but be smart about it. And now we're going to talk about scheduling your meals. Between having weights, conditioning, practices, classes, getting enough sleep, you need to make sure that you are fueling your body. For my entire college career, I have gotten up for weights before the cafeteria opened. So I couldn't grab something from the caf to fuel myself. And that's why I keep a small army of granola bars and protein shakes in my room so I can just grab and go. One of my teammates would always have a Go-Gurt in her hand when she was coming into weights. And I used to make fun of her for it because I was like, oh, you're a grown woman with a Go-Gurt in your hand. I thought it looked silly. But Go-Gurts are actually a really good snack for when you're on the go. You don't need any utensils. There's no mess unless you're an idiot, and it's quick. Why am I going in depth about good qualities of a Go-Gurt as a snack? Because I'm trying to emphasize the stuff you should be thinking about, what will be most convenient for you. Work smarter, not harder. And make sure you're scheduling your sleep too. Listen, I'm super type A, so that's why I say I schedule everything. I don't know what I'm doing that day unless I look at my Outlook. But it is important that you need to know when to go to sleep. Minimum of 7 hours of sleep per night and 8 to 9 hours for optimal functioning. If you are getting up earlier, you need to go to sleep earlier, and you need to be able to get up in the morning, especially if you don't have a roommate on your team who needs to get up at the same time as you. You need to be responsible, and you can't rely on your teammates to get you up. That being said, let me tell you the amount of times that my roommates bailed me out and had to wake me up for weights sophomore year. It was embarrassing. So many times just, Dallas, we have to go to weights. Bless my roommates for doing that for me. They were very kind. But there's another side to consider about that. Some teams have policies that you can't show up without all of your roommates. So in a sense, they couldn't really leave without me. If you show up to practice without your roommates, let's say this is you live with one other person, you share a bedroom. If you show up to practice and you leave your roommate sleeping in the bed of your room, some teams will have consequences, not only for your roommate who slept in, but for you because you just left them there and abandoned them for whatever if you didn't care enough, or if you were trying to get an edge of like, oh, that teammate's not here and maybe I'll get an opportunity. Even if your team does not have a formal policy on leaving your roommate behind, you'll need to consider how that affects your relationship, not only with your roommate, who you live with, but with your teammates who watched you show up alone. That is foul. I'm just saying it out here now. Since sophomore year, however, I have greatly improved my ability to get up in the morning. So here are some tips and tricks that helped me get up in the morning. Number 1, the bed shaker. I have an alarm clock that violently shakes my bed when I need to get up. The alarm clock, I set it on my nightstand, and it connects to a little disc that I slide underneath my mattress. And for me, I just put it between the mattress and the mattress topper that I have. It gets you up real quick. And it's very helpful if you have a roommate, let's say on another team, who doesn't have to get up at the same time as you. I feel better because I'm not violently waking them up with some crazy phone alarm ringtone. It just vibrates. It only bothers you. It doesn't horrendously bother your roommate. And another thing I started doing is keeping my phone or alarm clock away from my bed. I'm talking about a walkable distance away from my bed. Like, you have to get up, because it's so much easier just to go back to sleep when I can stay in my warm bed and I can just reach over and hit the snooze button. That's not getting me up. But I find that it's really helpful if you force yourself to get up out of bed, out of the covers, and walk over to your phone or alarm clock. And truly, you shouldn't be having your phone anywhere near your bed anyway. You want your brain's association with your bed to be, okay, time for sleep, not just messing around on 30 minutes, scrolling, because I'm guilty of that. You don't want that, because the blue light from our electronic devices makes it more difficult to fall asleep. Think about that. The blue light from our phones makes it more difficult to fall asleep. We can use that fact to our advantage. I have this game I like to play on my phone, and sometimes when I wake up, I pull out my phone and I start playing that game. And you just start out squinting at the screen, and then your eyes slowly open up, and suddenly I'm awake and fully functioning. So me personally, I will sleep for as long as I can before I have to be someplace. Our weight trainers and coaches, they would say, oh, you should make yourself some food. And I'm like, I'm not getting up any earlier than I have to be. I'm taking up all the sleep that I can. And so that's why the night before I have to get up, I put out my practice clothes. I am packing my bag, filling up my water, setting up my snacks, so I don't have to think about that in the morning. My team had a different color practice shirt for every day of the week. Mondays blue, Tuesdays red, Wednesdays gray, whatever, that sort of thing. First thing I'm gonna say about a schedule like that is write it down on a piece of paper or print it out, whatever you like, and hang it on the wall of your bedroom right next to your door. That way you don't have to scroll through a group chat or dig through your camera roll to find an image. It's right there. You can just check, oh, okay, today is black, perfect. And even then, even if you do hang that up on the wall, we're humans and we make mistakes. It's not a bad idea to just bring the other practice uniforms just in case you got it wrong, because you'll walk into weights, realize everyone's wearing blue, and you're like, oh, crap, I messed up. And then if you have your shirt with you, just go change in the bathroom real quick. Alternatively, make sure you have a sweatshirt to literally cover up the fact that you messed up. Whenever I would see someone wearing a sweatshirt in weights and they are dripping sweat, but they refuse to take off their sweatshirt, you just knew they wore the wrong shirt. I've done that myself, where it's really hot, but I messed up and now I'm stuck in this sauna of a sweatshirt. And my point is, have a backup plan always. And here's the thing. You allow yourself enough time to do a quick change real quick, because it is very common, not all teams, but it's very common for some teams to have a 15-minute rule. Basically, wherever you have to be, get there 15 minutes early. Weights, conditioning, practice, meetings, study hall, assemblies, everything. Even if your team does not have this policy, you need to have this policy, because it will make your life so much easier. One of the nicest things about being a student athlete is that you have trainers who can help you feel better. Make sure you can move without pain. Make sure you can move, period. Mobility is super important. Utilize your athletic trainers. If you are sore from a workout, stretch, foam roll, do some active recovery. When I was a freshman, I didn't feel like I needed to do all that because my body could pretty quickly bounce back. But then you look at all the upperclassmen who've been here longer, and you see them completely decked out in ice bags and scheduling treatment 2 to 3 times a week. Sometimes, and I've been guilty of this as well, we get hurt and think, it'll just get better on its own. Just go to the trainers. They will help you. One time, I strained my hip or glute, I don't quite remember which, but it was this area here, and when I was going to bed that night, I couldn't cross my legs without being in considerable pain. And it just got worse until one night I tried crossing my legs and I couldn't sleep because of how much pain I'm in. And I pulled out my phone and I scheduled an evaluation with the trainers immediately because it catches up to you quick until you can't deal with it anymore. This morning, no joke, I took my roommate's dog out for a 5-minute jog. And my knee was throbbing for the next 30 minutes as I was writing this script. That's not a joke. If you can go to the trainers, do it. I used to walk into the trainers and go, Jay! Our trainer's name was Jay, and he was just the team dad, and I would just come to him for everything. I would go, my leg hurts. The pain is unbearable. I don't know how I will cope or go on. I can't do it. And they were very kind, and they would help you. Now, of course, despite my theatrics, always treat your trainers with respect. You should always say please and thank you. I actually know a trainer here at Del State, and other athletes will know who I'm talking about. This trainer will not do anything or potentially not even acknowledge your request if you forget to say please. They've caught me a couple of times, but they make a valid point. Trainers need to be appreciated. They are not just waiting on you hand and foot. They do a lot for all of the teams, and it is important to respect them. And take care of yourself. If you need a foam roll, if you need a stretch, if you need a band to feel better or strengthen a joint that you have, make sure you are taking care of yourself because it will catch up with you. And now we're just going to talk about simply making yourself stand out on the team. The coach is probably going to give you summer workouts before you show up in the fall. And you got to do it. Do the workouts. Do not slack off, because if you show up in great shape because you did the workout, the coach won't have to worry about how hard you're going to work because they see the hard work for themselves. You do not want to be the player that a coach thinks, oh, this kid won't work hard if no one's watching him. It's about what you do when no one is watching. Set yourself up for success. Even if you don't have a workout plan provided by the team, you have to do something. Weight training for your muscles and joints, and then cardio for your heart and lungs. Some programs have fitness tests that you must pass before you start to practice with them. And my team, our policy was that you have to do a timed mile before you got any gear, before we started practice. You had to pass your timed mile. I know others who had, like people at other schools who play softball, they had to do long distance runs. And the biggest thing to remember is that the coaches are not just looking at who is in the best shape. They're looking at who is willing to push themselves to be better than they already are. They want to see who's going to tap out early and who is going to push through the side stitches. A lot of times coaches are testing your mettle just as much as your physical preparation. Don't get me wrong, they're checking your physical preparation too, but they want to make sure that you are willing to work hard and that it shows. One big thing that I recommend to all athletes before coming to college: perfect your form on squat, bench, and deadlift, minimum. Throw some other movements in there if you like, but I think those are pretty necessary. The reason I say perfect your form before coming to college is that your weight coaches are going to have a lot of athletes at a time to monitor all at once. A couple times, my softball team would be in the weight room at the same time as tennis, or maybe lacrosse or women's basketball, I don't quite remember. But there would be another team in there that they would also have to pay attention to. And they might not see your crappy squat form because they're working with another athlete. That's not anybody's fault. But it's a good idea to know what you are doing ahead of time so that you don't have to wait your turn and ask, does this look right? And it prevents potential injuries as well, because the last thing you want to do is hurt yourself by doing a deadlift, squat, or bench. So let's circle back to the reason I bring this up, making yourself stand out. Physical fitness and preparation, and be willing to go the extra mile. Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. We all know that saying, and it's true. If there is something that you are struggling with in your game, ask your coach for guidance. Go to the field, court, or track by yourself and do the things that you need to do to be better within your own game. That extra work is going to set you apart from the people who don't go the extra mile. And freshmen, be prepared to take constructive criticism. You are in a new environment, doing stuff you've never done before with a group of people you probably just met. You are learning a lot all at once, and you have to adapt quick, and you are going to make mistakes. That's part of it. But when you do make those mistakes, make sure you are being open and receptive when people give you advice. They do it out of love because they care about you. Don't be rude to them when they're just trying to help. When I was a freshman, I thought I had everything figured out, but I wasn't doing any extra work on my own. My softball team is very fortunate to have an indoor turf facility with batting cages, pitching machines, everything. We call that building the annex, for clarification. And I hadn't gone to the annex once within my first 2 weeks after practice started. And my captains sat the whole team down and pointed at one of my upperclassmen and said, "How many times have you been to the annex?" And she said, 10. And she points at me, "How many times you've been to the annex?" And I said, 1. I lied, it was 0. She looked at me and says, "That's not okay. We will never be the team that we want to be if we have teammates going every day and some not going at all. We have to all want to be better." And I sat there thinking, I want to be good, but my actions didn't back it up. And after that conversation, you couldn't get me out of the annex. I have a picture from freshman year in my camera roll where I'm in the annex at 11 p.m. on the weekend. The annex was locked, but I still got in through an unlocked back door. And I turn on the lights and I stay there for like an hour on a Saturday night. That's how bad you have to want it. And sometimes, freshmen, underclassmen, you have to set the tone yourselves. Now please, do not be the freshman that's like, "Can we run another mile, coach?" Your upperclassmen will kill you. And it does matter what they think of you because team chemistry matters on the field, court, or track. You should always encourage your teammates to be positive and work hard, but do not make them run because of some nonsense you pulled. If you mouth off to the coach, forget your bag at the field, leave your shoes somewhere, and I have to deal with the consequences of your actions, that's not good. Don't be a problem, freshman. If you want to make yourself stand out, work hard and be willing to help. That is so huge, the want to be help. You should be the first person to offer to carry equipment, drag the field, and do it with a smile on your face. Because your coach will see how much you want to be there. My team always had some kind of post-practice chore, and we would break it up by class. Seniors on ball walk, freshmen on drag, juniors and sophomores on equipment. Do not groan, do not roll your eyes, say yes, coach, and keep moving. And now for a more broad idea of living on this campus. Listen to me when I say people talk. I attend a school with a small campus where all the athletes know all of the athletes. I'm not going to tell you not to live your life, but understand that your actions and decisions may or may not reflect back on your team. Do not embarrass the program, please. And also, if you want to be close with your team, you need to hang out with them outside of when you have to be around them. For me, being close with my team meant studying with them in the library, working out together in the annex, eating food together in the caf after a practice, movie nights, running out for coffee drinks, maybe a trip to the local Wawa. That's how you develop a relationship with your teammates. Spend time with them when you don't have to. And go to sports events that aren't yours. Go watch women's basketball or equestrian. Educate yourself on a sport that you might be unfamiliar with. Last year, I learned that in women's lacrosse, you have to drop the stick after scoring a goal. I didn't know that. I was sitting there like, oh, they all have the same celebration. That's so cute. And I learned that day. I learned more about a sport that I was unfamiliar with. And other teams see that you come out and support them. Support each other. It doesn't matter if the program is successful or not. I could go on a long rant about the importance of cheering and why you should cheer even if crap is hitting the fan. But all I'm gonna say for right now is that you cheer to support each other. It's important. I do not care what the outcome is. You have to be able to hype each other up and be positive. And that is all the time that we have for today. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm really glad you are here with me today. And I hope that you got something out of this. We covered a lot of stuff today. If you haven't already, subscribe to Dallas Talks Too Much on YouTube, follow us on Instagram, share this episode with a friend, tell me what you think in the comments. Don't forget there's a link in the video description and Instagram bio where you can submit your questions. I hope you have a beautiful day. This is Dallas Spiker Ramirez signing off from Dallas Talks Too Much. Thanks for watching.